All right. What the hell?
What the hell do you too, Chad?
Well, I think, yeah. What the hell, everybody?
I look different. I shaved the beard. That's a temporary thing. And I'm not having seizures. I just happen to have a bad case of the hiccups. So Chad and I have decided we'll go ahead and do the episode, and we'll see if it's airable.
Okay.
If we can get away with doing this. Man, it's irritating to be like 53 years old and like having a kid disease. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I know.
But I
It's
guess
really
old
annoying.
folks hiccup too. Yeah, it is. And I I woke up with them, so it was like, you do that yawn stretch. It's like, and I was like, fuck.
God.
Anyway, that's you have the Criterion Brazil behind you, don't you?
Yes, I thought you might recognize that. It's like dropping
Yeah.
handkerchiefs. Oh, I'll just, oops, I didn't mean to put this here.
I love that. I cherish that.
Yeah, I was thinking
I
this
did
could
get the
be
Blu-ray version as well. I did get that too.
Yeah, I think I got this like 15 years ago whenever it came out. 19
Yeah, and like
20 years ago. Yeah.
And pretty much like every Criterion, their stuff does, or at least they purposely take things out of print for a while. So for a while, that was actually quite rare, and you could have sold it.
Oh, really?
I have the Criterion RoboCop, and that has been out of print for a long time.
Oh.
So for a while, I'd go on like eBay and see people selling it for $400, and I still want to keep it. Thank you, no. Thank you, no.
God. Yeah, I thought at some point in the future we should do a whole show about this movie and the
Oh my God, watch out.
the story. Yeah. No.
I would love it. Brazil
but I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, it's in my top probably top 10 of all time. On Letterboxd, have you ever been on that app?
Letterboxd? No, what is that?
It's sort of social, but I don't interact with people. All it is a list of every movie ever, basically, and each one has a little page, and you can type, like, you can click I've watched it, I liked it, or I loved it. You can rate it, and if you feel so inclined, you can actually write a review. I've never done that either, because I'm like, I have too much else to do. And a lot of people are writing very good reviews, and a lot of people are just being snarky. It's like, oh, that's cute. And it's addictive. If you're a collector type person, like with my graphic novels, there's an app that I have listed my entire inventory on that app, and it's just for me to go, look at all the stuff I have. And with Letterboxd, it's like, look at all the stuff I've watched. And it also does a thing, like if I've rated, I could choose to look at my own tops, like, oh, I just want to see all the ones I gave 5 stars to. And you're like, oh yeah, those are all my faves. And yeah, Brazil's way up there. Jesus Christ with the hiccuping. I got through a whole sentence, man. But anyway, so it's a cool app, and you can also like let your friends know you're on it so they can see which ones you liked or which ones you didn't like. And a lot of the ones I do for the podcast with John, they're like the 1 star, half star. But that's my job. This week we're watching Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera from 1988. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, wow.
Or 89. I don't know. No, not 88. What am I talking? 98. We're in the 90s.
Yeah, you're still in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, right. We're almost to the 2000s. I'm very excited.
I bet.
Let's hope the hiccups are gone by Wednesday when I record that, because that doesn't even have the visual. It'll just sound like I'm completely drunk off my ass. Dario Argento, an Italian master of horror and eroticism, and he's a... I just did a fake one, and it caused me to do a real one. I love that. Anyway, so yeah,
your body's like, get out of the way, let me handle this.
Amateur. Yeah. Anyway, excellent taste on what you have there behind you.
Thank you.
What do you want to chat about? Oh, you've got the trilogy back there too.
What?
Star Wars trilogy?
Oh yeah, I just took this out. I want to get my my VHS working too. I haven't
your
played
VCR
tapes in ages. Yeah, VHS.
I don't have one anymore. So like when we talked about before, like, do you have any VHS left? I do. I have this little stack, and then I have no way of watching them, but I just hold on to them for various reasons. And I don't have a turntable. And I think I finally got rid of all of my LPs. No, I kept some comedy albums. I have like a Jonathan Winters, a couple of Jonathan Winters, and a Bob Newhart and stuff like that. Yeah,
I have my Robin Williams, his first solo record, his first comedy record.
When he broke up from Mindy.
This was a
I can't believe he left Mork and Mindy.
I know. Reality What a Concept, which was the first comedy record he put out. I have it after he died. I put it on my wall. Just
nice.
I wanted to see his face, but I don't have. I haven't listened to records in a long time, but I'm working on fixing that. So I've got.
Are those the vinyl Sgt. Peppers and White Album and all that, or are those books?
These are the actual CD box sets of the re-release special editions that Giles
I don't
Martin
have those.
The remixes.
Yeah,
they're great.
I've heard them, but I don't physically own them. Yeah. I'm in that digital age.
The Abbey Road one is probably the nicest. It's really nice. I don't have the Revolver yet. That's the one I haven't got yet.
Those have to cost a pretty penny, I'm willing to bet.
Yeah. This book, by the way, is on its way to you. I guess you can't see it.
But you already showed it to me. I can't wait, man. That's awesome. I didn't even know they had done a book off of that documentary.
I know, yeah. And it's essentially, in case anybody's not familiar with it, it's
Fumetti. They just do like stills and they put their like dialogue underneath them. Oh, how you doing? I'm doing all right. How are you?
I wish they did do that. It is actually a transcription of
nice.
Well, obviously. In the film.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I haven't actually gone through and read it. But I'm
much less Reddit in their accents.
Yeah, right.
It's great. You put on a little show where you're just doing the Beatles.
But I don't know if it's like the whole series or not. But
it couldn't be.
It's a very nice book either way.
So. That looks gorgeous. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, and this is basically going to be a show and tell episode.
I think it's turned into a show and tell episode.
Yeah. This I thought, I wonder if I still have.
Yeah,
this.
You mentioned it.
And I do, but it's fine in condition. But I was just disappointed because
is it the original pressing?
Why is it blank? And I realized there's staples here. There used to be a booklet, I think, and I must have messed it up.
Chad, I had the same thing. It had a booklet. Is that the original pressing?
Yeah, the 1977.
So you know what's weird? One of the things, because we had talked about.
Sorry, okay. I noticed the sticker here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Because that didn't look like mine. What does that say?
It says, warning, this item registered and traceable. What? I'm like,
that's how they get
GPS
you, man.
Or something?
That's how they get you. They've been tracking everyone who's ever bought Story of Star Wars. I had that same one, and I was talking to John, who has another podcast, which I think you would really enjoy. He and his friend Mike are doing one. They wanted to do a Star Wars podcast, and they're like, there's so many. And then they realized, no one's doing a podcast on the Star Wars comics. Oh. So it combines two of their loves. And so they're basically, every episode is them going through from the beginning. So the early Marvel ones, which are not great, like literally from 77, they're just going to go through all the Marvel, all the Star Wars comics, like when it jumps over to Dark Horse. We're going to keep going. So cool. It's highly nerdy, but we were talking about it because if you remember the Marvel Comics adaptation of the first one, Star Wars, like they included stuff that got cut from the movie because they had early versions of the script to adapt. So it has like the scene with Biggs, like the scene at what's it, station? Tashi Station, where he goes to get his converters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I would have loved it if you had Uncle Owen go, "You mean whores, don't you, Luke? It's the whorehouse. Get your power converters. You're going to see those loose women." But anyway, so that's in the comic. So that led to me talking about the Story of Star Wars LP because in that booklet that you're missing, they have photos from that scene. I remember as a kid, of course, knowing the movie backwards and forwards, going, "Oh, that's him with Biggs, but they're on Tatooine. That's not in the movie."
Yeah.
I was still young enough. I didn't realize that things that get shot sometimes don't end up in a final cut. So I was just like going, why can't I see that? But I had that album. You were like, oh, I can't wait to listen to this. I'm like going, just watch the movie, because that's all it is. It's an edited down literal soundtrack of the entire movie with dialogue, the whole
with narration though. It's got narration in it as well.
Oh, does it?
It's Roscoe. I was looking up the guy's
Roscoe
name.
B. Coltrane from the Dukes of Hazzard.
No. It was
boys on Tatooine. Geek.
there was he was actually, the guy was a sought after voiceover artist at the time. I forget his full name. Hey, Chad here. I just had to add, the guy's name is Roscoe Lee Brown.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a great adventure took place.
He was actually a very well-known actor and director, and I knew him as a kid from the sitcom Soap, where he played a character named Saunders, a butler who replaced Benson after Robert Guillaume left to do his own series. And Roscoe was born in Woodbury, New Jersey, which is where I was born. Crazy. But he did the first one, and then I also have this one, the Empire Strikes Back one.
I only had the first. I only had Story of Star Wars.
This one is narrated by Malachi Throne.
Regaining consciousness, Luke realizes that his lightsaber lies just beyond his reach.
Wow.
Which a great name, but
yeah.
he was actually a pretty busy character actor, did Star Trek stuff and a lot of TV things. So you would recognize his face. I never noticed that name. I said, Malachi Throne.
One of the weird things for me as a Star Wars fan, kid, well, it was also, Empire wasn't immediate. It was a couple years later. Things in the family and money situation. My collecting of Star Wars stuff is so first movie centric. Literally, I had pretty much everything, including the comforter and sheets, the curtain set. I had Chewbacca socks. I mean, I had a kick-ass. Yeah, I did. I had a kick-ass Darth Vader belt buckle. I love this stuff, and I had pretty much all the figures and vehicles from the first movie. My parents did do us right, because I think it was a combo for me and Robin. That 78 Christmas, we had the Death Star, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Land Speeder. I did have to buy the Millennium Falcon myself. That was the first thing I ever purchased with my own money.
Wow.
Because I mowed lawns and did basic stuff and saved up $25. I remember that's how much it was to get the, back then too.
It was cheap.
But once I had the Millennium Falcon, I was just like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Because it was huge too, because it would fit the actual figures in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so pretty much the entire first movie, I had everybody. I had Walrus Man, and I was set. Hammerhead. And then by the second movie, of course, I loved Empire, but I never had a single snowtrooper. I never had an AT-AT. I really kind of wanted an AT-AT.
Yeah, neither did I.
No speeder. Yeah. No, I didn't have any of that. I didn't even have a fucking Tauntaun.
Yeah, I think by that point I had started to lose interest in those types of toys.
I never lost interest in toys, but I think I'd already advanced to the next thing. So I was like going, instead of more Star Wars stuff, now I'm on to this thing.
Right.
But I sure loved the movie. That was...
The cool thing about that Story of Star Wars record was, at the time, we didn't have any way to watch that on home video for the first. I mean, it didn't even come out on TV for many years. Did it? It did eventually, but like for the first, like from 77 through 80, 81 or whatever, maybe it was on broadcast TV at some point, but there was no way for me to tape it, even if it did come on.
Yeah.
So, but they would keep re-releasing the movie in the theaters every summer. Star Wars would come out. My dad and I would go see it every time they would put it back out. So, but really the only way that I memorized the dialogue was from that record.
Yeah.
And I'm remembering now that because they started even back then, Lucas was making little tweaks to the released versions. Like there would be little things to be different, like the close, but they say, oh, what is that line? Close the blast doors, and then open the blast doors, open the blast doors. That's one of the reasons I'm curious to listen to this again, because that line, close the blast doors, before Han and Chewie jump through those blast doors as they're closing, and then you do hear them say, open the blast doors, open the blast doors. The joke is like they just told him to close it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they can't get through it. I think on the record you hear the close the blast doors. I could be wrong, but there's almost certainly some things in that dialogue, that
I wouldn't
1977
doubt it.
version, that are different from like the 1980 version or the 1981 version because they kept making changes to the audio.
It's like when we were talking about the power records last week and book and record sets. It's a thing where the whole purpose, I mean, obviously when you've got the comic in front of you and you're reading it, then it is just like someone's acting it out while you're reading it. But in the case of Story of Star Wars, I mean, that was literally just, you put it on the turntable and you closed your eyes and then you just saw the movie in your head again. That was the whole thing. And you're like, oh, great. That's awesome. Or if you ended up with the action figures, then you could literally act it out. You know, it's like, there's my C-3PO talking to my R2-D2.
Yeah. I remember having similar records for some of the Disney films too, like Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah.
And possibly Aristocats, I think.
Yeah, I think the Aristocats actually probably was like the full movie soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because it only had like, no, that's not true. It had like 4 or 5 songs in it.
Yeah.
But you know, so they would just make an entire album that was the story of, and you would hear the songs where they would drop in the movie, and that was a way, like you said, pre VHS days of like, hey, you want to experience the movie again? Here you go. And Disney did work out that, because Lucas was kind of following Disney's lead. A lot of studios, their big pictures, even if they were old, they would cycle them through and re-release them to theaters. And Disney did that like hardcore, where like I remember my mom going, we're going to go see, Sleeping Beauty. And you're like, oh, okay. So it was from her childhood, but she's so excited because it's come back to the movie theater and I've never seen it. So let's go and watch it. I remember, by the way, I don't think it was a re-release. I think it was the year it was released. The Disney animated Robin Hood. Remember that with the
I love
Robin
that one.
Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Robin Hood,
Roger Miller
running through. Yeah, Roger Miller doing all the songs.
Reminiscing this and that and having such a good time. Oodle-lolly, golly, what a day.
Oodle-lolly, golly, what a day. We went to the drive-in out in Macomb, Mississippi to see it in our VW bus. This is so 70s, man.
My job is to tell it like it is.
We had made Jiffy Pop, and so we didn't have to pay for concession stand popcorn. And we get there, it starts, and then it burned through. These are the things that, kids today just don't even know this experience. Yeah. Because all the projectors now are digital. But so it burned through, it started, and then it was like, the voice over those boxes, the speaker boxes are like, sorry, folks. It's like, we'll give you a refund on your way out. And I did not. Oh, and then I went into the hospital not long after that to get my tonsils out. My mom brought me Disney's Robin Hood storybook and a coloring book. And I loved that, but I never actually saw that movie until I was 30 years old.
Really? Wow.
Well, just because it didn't come back around, the theaters. And then, I don't know, I kind of saw every other Disney movie. I never got around to seeing it.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think someone had like a VHS or a DVD, and they're like, "Here." I watched. I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah, that makes me wonder. I
knew the songs. I knew the songs because Disney always releases like albums, the best of Disney or whatever. So
I was always kind of fascinated that it essentially looked like Baloo was playing Little John.
Yeah, it's a similar. it's the same. It's not just similar. It's pretty much the exact actor? Design.
Is it the same actor though?
No. Was it? It might have been. Because who is that? That's Phil Harris. I think was Baloo.
He shot himself a mighty fine quail in one little measly hair. But on his way returning home, he met a great big grizzly bear.
Very recognizable voice, and he may have actually been Little John. Huh.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that could be. They do look. Baloo is like, I'm getting work. Hey, Mowgli, I got a gig. I got to go over and play Little John.
The animal characters too, and I did watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks recently. The animal characters on the island do resemble that same era of Disney. It probably is the same era of Disney.
Yeah. they had all the same animators. Maybe they're like going, we could come up with new designs, but those are really good.
Yeah.
Just put a different, weird bunch of clothes on them or whatever.
Right.
Or they're naked animals.
Hey.
Man, I watched that Jungle Book and it's full of naked animals. The only one wearing clothes is Mowgli.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And this is the episode that gets us canceled. So speaking of show and tell, I think you'll enjoy this. You got something recently. I had pre-ordered this back before I knew how tough it'd be to pay rent. Because I saw that. Yeah, go ahead and laugh.
I'm gonna edit all this out. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I think you should do a super cut where I just hick.
Yeah, I'll just copy and paste all the hiccups into another sequence. It'll come at the end of the show. See you next week, people.
You should set it to something like "Rocket" by Herbie Hancock. Anyway. So this will take you back, even though this is a modern update on it. I don't know if you know this, but Mego, the classic doll company of the 70s, which went out of business in the 80s when all the action figures shrank, thanks to Star Wars and then G.I. Joe. Everyone got tiny. But in our use of the 70s, Mego was the go-to. They had the license for DC and Marvel and other people. So you could have like their Spider-Man hanging out with your Batman and they like are pals because Mego made them all. One of the ones that of course I cherished and loved was the Mego Superman. And he was their first figure. And I haven't had a Mego in a million years. Those went out. Probably my mom donated those too, I'm sure, at some point. But for the 50th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, other than the silver badge and other than the updated DC logo, it's the same box too. Same. World's greatest superheroes with the Mego label. I remember these sides where they would show other figures, and over here, the one thing that's different, that's a much more modern Green Arrow drawing, but that's the original. I remember that Aquaman and that Captain Marvel, which they're just saying Shazam.
The pose that Aquaman has is like he's marching to go shuts. I'm gonna go give my neighbor a piece of my mind.
Yeah, actually, he's like going, Neymar, you fucking bastard. They still have a beef, but it's just so awesome because, and I've left them in the box. One thing I am a little sad about. I mean, that is what they looked like. Exactly. They had the cloth suits, but they always had a sticker emblem on their chest. So Superman's S is just a sticker.
Oh,
and one of the things I remember was when you were a kid, about 2 months into you owning it and him flying around, that sticker just started coming off. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe they would update it and have it sort of sewn on. No,
they're saying
they wanted to be true to the original, so it's a sticker. I won't take them out of the box. I think that's just great because nothing has taken me back to the 1970s more than my Mego Superman. And they've actually expanded. I think someone bought the copyright, the name, the logo, and restarted Mego. So they've done all the classics. They look just like they used to, but they've started expanding. They have like Mego Ghostbusters. They have they have all kinds of stuff. Some of them real. Like they've got Young Frankenstein, Mego. You're like, oh great, here's Dr. Frankenstein, and here's the creature in his tuxedo, and you're like, this is weird.
Young Frankenstein, like
Mel Brooks. Yeah,
they made figures from that movie. That's so cool.
Well, they also have some from Hammer movies, like specifically Christopher Lee's Dracula, not Bela Lugosi's Dracula. So they've become, as a lot of action figure companies are doing now, they've become very niche. Simply because it's a collector culture and it's all middle-aged people are buying the toys, not for the kids. So it's like, I mean, I bet sometime they'll end up doing a Ralph Hingley Greatest American Hero at some point. And if they do, I'll get that and I'll put them right next to it.
That seems uniquely suited for that too.
Oh, yes. Believe it or not, I cannot stand the hiccups, man. They're driving me nuts. Do you have a trick? Do you know a hiccup trick?
Well, I think I remember doing this, trying to do this to you when you had hiccups back like 30
Oh,
years ago. It didn't work.
was
I just
that
would try to
was that the
scare
night
you.
that you? Oh, I think
I'd
that
go,
was the night that
"Ah!"
you just kept punching me in the face, right? That was you were like going, "Trust me, this works."
Yeah. That
Yeah,
the
great.
thing I've tried. Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. Was holding my breath for as long as I could.
I've done. I mean, I have this happen enough that I've done the holding the breath. I've tried the spoonful of sugar, and I've tried. Obviously, you just drink a lot of water. You drink anything bubbling and that sort of thing. You force yourself to burp. I've tried it all, and basically, I think the only thing that makes my hiccups go away and always has is at some point they stop, and the key is not noticing.
Yeah,
It's one of those
right.
things like if you start
Exactly.
noticing it, then you force yourself basically into hiccuping again.
Right.
But if during this conversation it stops, I need to just keep going and pretend that I don't even notice.
Oh, I do remember. Oh, they're gone. Damn it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I
Exactly.
think no, I brought it back. Anyway, hey listeners, you guys write in with your hiccup fixes, and hopefully by the time your comments show up, I won't have them anymore, and I'll have forgotten all about it.
Not total change of subject, but slight derailing.
Oh Jesus!
Not that there's anything to derail this week, but my mom and I were just talking about Young Frankenstein. For some, I can't remember how we got on to talking about it, but it
I think because it's one of the greatest comedy films of all time.
we were talking about celebrity sightings for some reason.
Huh.
But Peter Boyle, I actually encountered him a couple times when I was working at this bakery in New York. One of many celebrity sightings I had there. They like great Peter Boyle, by the way.
Yeah.
He's even taller in person than he appears in on the movies. He's absolutely towering where he was. But he came in one afternoon, and to ask for what a lot of people used to ask for back in those days was change for the parking meter.
Oh, I thought you were going to say cocaine. Keep going. Yeah.
But he came in and he was so polite, but he felt weird about asking, because some businesses in New York will say, no, you have to buy something, you can't just get change. It would be weird. They'd be weird about it. It's strange to think about now. So you don't even need change for a parking meter anymore. But he came in and he goes, I knew what he was going to ask because I could just see it in his face. He kind of goes, "Hey, give me a chocolate chip muffin." Who's looking down? I said, "All right." And so he bought the muffin. He's thank you, and he left. And then a couple weeks or maybe a couple months later, I was working behind the counter with my friend Sandra, and Sandra happened to be the one who helped him this time. She didn't know who he was.
Oh,
and
bad Sandra.
And Sandra was a jokester. So he comes in and it's the same thing. He looks at her and he's like, this time he worked up the courage to actually ask for the change. Said, can I just get change for the meter? And Sandra, being Sandra, looks at him and goes, no. And he goes, and he's at first he's like, oh, he goes, I'm just kidding here. I'm just messing with you. And gave him the change. He's like, oh, thank you so much. And
I like those. Oh no, I'm sorry, you're not done.
Well, yeah, but I just said, she didn't know who he was. I said, you know who that was? Because I was at the other end of the service area watching this happen. And it was just hilarious how polite and just gracious he was. And I said, do you know what that was? Like, no, I know. This was before Everybody Loves Raymond, by the way.
Yeah.
So which
that's when I got to see him.
We all, everybody who worked in that bakery, we went to go see, we went all to a comedy club one night, and Ray Romano was one of the guys.
Oh, that's great.
Before he hit it big. Yeah. So it's a strange confluence of events, but yeah.
I like when it is a thing like that, where it's truly in the wild, when they are just people dealing with their stuff. The only difference in my Peter Boyle story is the fact that, and I get this, when I was doing the tour guide thing, it is an imposition, because that is their office essentially, and so they're there to work. Peter Boyle did not like the tour because they shot Everybody Loves Raymond on the lot, and I will say this: they were really nice. The Drew Carey Show people and Everybody Loves Raymond people were so great. Patricia Heaton was awesome. She's like, "Call me Patty," and they would invite my tours in to watch them like block and rehearse.
Very cool.
And Ray Romano himself was like, you guys having a good time? And so I always appreciated that because it made my job easier. But that was the thing, is that some people on the lot, you knew they're like, they hate the tours, avoid them. And Peter Boyle was one. He was not actively assholish, but if he saw them coming, like, here's my little cart, you would just see him go from the trailer like right into. He's like, no, no, no. And during blocking, it's like most of those people would just, like, if they screw it up, and there were people watching, they would make each other laugh, but they would also point it to the audience like, we're not perfect. We mess up all the time. Peter Boyle never turned his head. He was not going to look at the people up in the stands. He's like, I'm just going to do this thing. And I respected that. That was, I think he put up with it. I never had like an actual interaction with him. I wish I'd known your story before, because I'd be like, you want a muffin? Yeah. Today, a friend of mine used to give you muffins in New York, or sell them to you. But I mean, it was still cool because he is a legend, and just to see him, and he is incredibly tall, and you're just like, God damn. Yeah, that was the coolest thing. The only person who actually got us blocked because he hated us so much was Eric LaSalle on ER. Everybody else on ER was cool with the tours, but Eric LaSalle, who played Dr. Benton, he would he eventually complained. He's like, any day I'm doing ER, they can't drive down this little street next to our soundstage. And we're like, hey, thank you, Mr. LaSalle. Dick.
This is part of the same conversation I had with my mom earlier today. I told her the Hey Stevie story from when you worked there.
But anyway, so we're in the golf cart and we're tooling around, and as we're going down one of the little roads there's a guy walking. My friend goes, do you think that's Spielberg? I was like, I don't think so. But I went, hey Stevie. I literally went, hey Stevie, as we got very close, and he hears me and he turns around and it is him, and he just turns around and just looks at me, and I was like, oh God, I want to die. I looked at my friend, I was like, go faster. Yeah, I am very glad that the story ends there, because if there had been an actual interaction, it just would have been humiliating. I would have let him go like, why are you talking to me like that? Why are you even looking at me? I am Spielberg.
Well, my mom's response to the story is like, why didn't you just give him a ride in the
because I was humiliated when I saw it was really him. But it's true. He was just walking down. I mean, we could have actually said, hey, Mr. Spielberg, you want a quick lift? And I bet he would have hopped on. But
you could have been like, dude, this is just the way I talk.
I'm sorry, Mr. Spielberg. Would you like to hop on? And then I'm stuck doing it for the entire time. I'm really a big fan. I lived in Sugarland. You remember when you did Sugarland Express? I lived there. Hi. Sugarland Express would have been the weirdest thing to bring up. I do like that. Like if you meet a celeb or an actor, you don't ever want to hit them with the common stuff. You don't want to say, I really loved E.T. because okay, great.
Yeah. You remember that time you did the
yeah. Remember when you
made
were
the movie
Beatles?
with the alien? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. The thing with I went to go see in LA. I went to go see Shaun of the Dead. Did I tell you this one already?
I don't know.
Shaun of the Dead, it was like its first US screening. It was at the ArcLight Cinema in LA. And I went because I'd already heard the buzz. And in attendance were Edgar Wright, the director, and Simon Pegg, the star, who did a Q&A after. And I did know Simon Pegg already because I watched Spaced, the TV series that they first paired up on. It's great. Goddamn, Space is hilarious. Sorry. And so I was excited. Watched the movie, and after it was over, and the Q&A, I hadn't noticed that there were other people. I mean, I knew there were other people in the audience, but Edgar Wright's like going, I'm really having a hard time answering these questions because one of my heroes is right there. He's like going, there's Quentin Tarantino. And Quentin's like, hey, everybody. Talk about someone not afraid to just mingle and blend with an audience. So he wasn't hiding. He's just like, hey, I love the movie. It was great. And next to him was, oh man, the hiccups are going to kill me. David Carradine was right next to him. So they were, I guess, working on Kill Bill at the same time. And so that's weird. I really enjoyed the Q&A. I didn't get to meet Simon Pegg or Edgar Wright. I didn't even ask him questions. I just watched it. And it was fun. But after the movie starts leaving, when people start filing out, Quentin and David Carradine are just in the same, in the crowd. And people instantly go to Tarantino, and he's talking to everybody. He had no problem. He wasn't like, I don't have time right now. He was just like, oh, yeah. And the whole group forms around him. And I watched that for a little bit. But David Carradine was getting not forgotten. People were going up to him, but it wasn't the same crowd. And a lot of people went up to him like going, oh man, Kung Fu, fucking love doing this thing. And I just said, Mr. Carradine, big fan. I shook his hand and I was like going, you were really good in Natural Selection, which I was like, that was my in. Natural Selection was a film shot in Austin, directed by my friend Mark Bristol. Hi, Mark. I don't know if he would ever watch this. And it had like David Carradine in it. He got him cheap. They ended up changing the name when it was released to like Monster Hunter, something totally generic and terrible. The movie's pretty good, but that's a terrible title. So when I said Natural Selection, it was like, he seemed really, oh yeah, thank you very much. And I said Natural Selection. And he goes, oh. I was like, I'm a friend of Mark, so I'd read the script and before he made it, and you were really great in it, and he was doing a very David Carradine performance. But yeah, so suddenly it was like, oh, that's something I never hear. And he's like, yeah, you saw it. It's like, he goes, did it get released? I was like, yeah, they call it Monster Hunter. He's like, and then he died. I'm not at that moment, but he, it was. I got to meet him before he died in Thailand. Chad, do me a favor. Don't die in Thailand.
Okay. I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to my people.
But that was another one of those things. So if you meet somebody, don't bring up their most common stuff. Bring up the obscure stuff.
Yeah.
Brendan's lesson for you.
I didn't meet this person, but when I lived in New York, most of my celebrity stories, let's face it.
Well, because you're going to be in yeah.
Obviously, you were in LA. I was in New York, so we see these, and especially you, and you worked in the industry.
Oh boy, that is a real nice way of putting that. Well, the most celebrity stories I have are from driving a golf cart around Warner Brothers. You're right.
Well, yeah. So, but sometimes on my days off, I'd walk over to the Ed Sullivan Theater while they were taping Letterman.
They do that around 5 or 5:30, right?
Yeah. And so I would, if there was something going on, I would hang around. It was really easy to tell because if you walk, look down the corner and you see a group of people, sometimes they'd have the whole block cordoned off, and that's when they're about to do something cool. So whether you want to stick around if they had the whole street blocked off.
So people would stick around for the entire thing, even if they're out on the sidewalk and are not able to see anything.
No, see, sometimes you could see a lot. Sometimes if they weren't doing anything on the street, you could get all the way up to the stage door, and there'd be no security or anything. So. And so you just wait till somebody comes out. Occasionally, but the times that David came out, they did have some of it blocked off, not the whole street, but they'd be doing some silly thing.
He was like,
he'd come out and say, "Hey, kids," do whatever his routine was. Sometimes Biff would come out.
Great!
And I did. If you hung around long enough afterwards, you'd see the band members come out, and almost nobody would bother them except for Paul. Paul would duck into a limo and go away. There's one time There's one time I saw Sid McGuinness, who was a guitar player. He comes out, nobody recognized him, nobody bothered him. He just walked away. He kept looking around, almost like singing. Really, nobody?
I mean, come on, everybody in that band they're great. Like famous session guys. These are big time musicians.
Yeah, and that was one of many chances I had to talk to famous musicians that I kind of blew it. I said, I was like, he worked with Peter Gabriel. I wanted to chase him down and say, hey, come back.
Hey, wait a minute.
I don't like that. But I saw many celebrities come and go through that door, and some of them would dive straight into the limo and go. Some of them would sign a couple of autographs and leave. The one person who hung around and made sure that everybody's thing was signed was Anthony Hopkins.
Really?
Of all the people, yeah. He was so gracious and so kind. I wasn't close enough to actually shake his hand or anything, but he was like, "Okay, did I get you? Good. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. You? Anybody else? No? All right. Bye."
No.
I think at that point, everybody was just stunned at how nice he was. They were like,
Anybody want to grab a sandwich?
You're right.
These are long, very tiring tours, and I'm very lonely. That's awesome.
It was very cool.
I don't judge people one way or the other. Like if you or I suddenly take off and become huge celebrities, I can't predict how, and I think it would literally be event to event. Like, in other words, what's my mood that day? I go on, I did the talk show, I brought everything I had, but really my brain is about, I'm having a breakup with my girlfriend at the same time. And so, it's quite possible. It's like, look, I know it's maybe exciting for you, my adoring fans, but it's like, yeah, I might just do the thing of like, wave, hi everybody, and get in that limo and get the fuck out.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
because they're people.
Right. Exactly.
And some of them do see it as part of their job. Yeah, I mean, some people do like, look, man, I wanted to be a celebrity and I am now. So this is part of the job. Even Steve Martin got it down to that brilliant response, which was just the little business card he'd hand out, because he's not really an extrovert guy. He's a very quiet, thoughtful dude, and he doesn't like pressing the flesh. Plus, since he's a comedian, the pressure to be on and like random people expecting you to suddenly be funny when in his head he's thinking about like art history or whatever the fuck, because he's always buying paintings and stuff. So it must be he came up with the brilliant idea of having that little card. This is to state that I have met Steve Martin in real life and he is everything I ever imagined to be. The whole thing is like he would just do that. He's like going, yeah, I don't do autographs, I'm sorry, but here, take this. That's brilliant. Also, he's just a really smart guy. By the way, don't think I haven't noticed the thing that I didn't want to notice.
What? Huh?
I haven't hiccuped in a couple of minutes, and you're forcing me to say it out loud.
I thought you were talking about something else behind me.
No. I haven't hiccuped in a couple minutes. So anyway, keep going. I'm not even thinking about it. Yeah. This was the cure.
What was I going to say? Steve Martin, actually, it's talking about that bakery in New York. Steve Martin came in one time and I missed it. I missed it. My friend Frank was helping him. And it was funny because Frank was like, I was helping somebody else and Frankie going, hey, like tugging my shirt. I was like, stop it. Leave me alone.
Oh, but you were there, but you just missed it.
We were both behind the counter helping people. He was helping somebody. I didn't recognize him. And after my customer left, he turned to me and goes, you idiot. That was Steve Martin. What?
That hurts.
And he was there with a red cap on and sunglasses, like totally just incognito.
Don't notice me. I'm totally not me.
Just buying a bunch of pastries for a party or something. Who knows what it was? But, yeah,
he is one that I would lose it.
Yeah.
Did I tell you Robin's story? Because Robin, of course, my brother, is totally unafraid. Like, to me, I do have some starstruck stuff. There's awkwardness, and so I don't approach celebrity. When I was on the lot, usually if they want to come over and talk, that's great, but I'm not calling over George Clooney. I'm just not. But my brother has always been, and when he lived in LA, he just walks up to people, and I mean, he might later say, man, that was crazy, but his desire to meet them was always bigger than him being afraid of it. So when he was assistant managing the New Art Theater, which is one of the trendy repertory theaters in LA, he just met people constantly. And sometimes he would introduce movies, like go up in front to tell, like, don't do this, turn off your cell phones, But also he would be funny because it's Robin.
That's how I first encountered him. Like almost everybody I know, that's how we first encountered
Robin
him.
Story
At River Oaks Theater.
After one of those, and I don't remember what movie it was, it might have been a Woody Allen movie, but in the audience were Carl Reiner and his wife, and Alan Alda and his wife. And after it was over, Carl Reiner went over to Robin to shake his hand. He's like going, very funny, young man, very funny. Which, of course, Robin's like, well, I can die. I can die now. But the one I was going to bring up is he is completely unafraid. The one time, and this, I'm not saying this to shame him, but one time a celebrity came into the New Art that he could not deal with. Like, it was too much. He was not going to approach him. In fact, he ran and hid in the office. William Shatner.
Oh,
Captain
wow.
Kirk came in and all of his coworkers just assumed Robin was going to go up and do the Robin thing, but he's like, I can't. I can't. So he ducked out. And the reason I brought that story up, Steve Martin would be that for me. Like, I just wouldn't be able to handle it. He's a god.
Yeah.
There are plenty that I would blush and just go, I think you're very good and very talented. I'm very fan. Blah, 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 and then back away. And there's some I would run and hide from, and the Hayes one.
Another story with him too. I just was listening to I listened to a lot of tech podcasts. One of them is Leo Laporte.
It's all
Leo
yours,
Laporte's
man.
This Week in Tech. And I didn't know this until recently. Leo had him on as a special guest at one point, and I thought he kept saying, "Oh, this is Steve Martin." I think it's got to be a coincidence. It can't be the Steve Martin because it didn't even sound like
it's got to be
me.
another Steve Martin.
But Steve Martin is a huge tech nerd. He loves all that stuff.
Wow.
So he's been on the show before. I just never knew it. But he's friends with Leo Laporte, who's the host of this, probably one of the earliest podcasts about tech news. And, but that was a trip to listen. He's like, Steve is just way into that stuff.
Wow. I mean, I there are many sides to that man. That is not one that I knew of previously.
Yeah. I was like, is this really? I was like, while I was listening to it, I was like Googling, like, is this the Steve Martin? Because he wasn't even trying to be funny. He was just talking about stuff. And
well, I mean,
being a dude.
I think he's one of those guys who what we know him for or what made him famous isn't really the guy. It's just a thing that he happens to have a brilliant comedic brain and he's a brilliant performer.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always heard this, off camera, off stage, he is just going to go to a coffee shop and read a book. And he's going to go to art galleries. And you're not going to get jokes out of the guy. He's not like, hey, there are people around, I should give him a show. No,
right.
Like it's only that's what he does for work.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time he's like going, yes, walking through the park. Great. What else was I going to say? Speaking of your story about missing Steve Martin, when I worked at Brentano's, which was pre me working at Warner Brothers, in Century City, Beverly Hills, plenty of celebrity sightings there. But the ones that killed me, because I would say to coworkers like, oh, I have a big crush on Gillian Anderson. She showed up multiple times when I wasn't there. And I never got to see her. This is like X-Files is still on at this point. And I would come back from like a lunch break and they're like going, we're not making this up. But Gillian Anderson was in here like 15 minutes ago. God damn it. And Winona Ryder went through once on a day I had off. And I had mentioned like as a, young 20-year-old huge crush on Winona Ryder. And of course I come back and they're like going, guess who was in yesterday? I'm like, it wasn't Winona Ryder. They're like, Winona Ryder was in. I'm like, God damn you. I saw plenty of awesome people. But yeah, it's usually the people that you're sitting there going, what? I missed that? Damn it.
We have to tell this. Maybe this would be a good way to wrap this episode up.
No, we have to tell this. We have to.
When we found out in Houston, it was big news that they were filming Reality Bites.
Oh, yeah.
And we found out all the weird connections that we personally had to this film. That my classmate from HSPVA, Helen Childress,
she wrote
the movie. She was in the movie. She played a waitress at the scene.
And she set it in Houston. So, I mean, that's why they were filming in Houston.
And then a friend of yours who did an interview with Helen for the Houston Chronicle. You and I were at House of Pies one night, and you introduced me to her. I can't remember what her name was, but you said, "Hey, come sit here for a second," because you had found out that she had talked to Helen.
Yeah,
and you said you need to hear what she has to say. So she sits down. She goes, "Yeah, Chad went to
yes."
She said, "Oh, this is the guy. Hey, so." Have you heard of a band called Elemental Penguin? And I went, what? And you were like, I told you. And by the way, people, Elemental Penguin was the band I had in high school.
High school band at HSPVA, and Helen had based. Oh, sorry, you tell it.
The band that Ethan Hawke's character was playing was based loosely on my band. There really is. When you watch the movie, there's no connection to it at all. But that's what she was thinking about in her head.
It's Ethan Hawke, and none of you guys are.
No. There really was no connect. But of course, I'm thinking I did talk to Helen on the phone a couple of years later, because there's a lot of weird things in the movie that and we didn't get into depth that much, but
Yeah.
I know that there was a lot of things from some of the main characters that were borrowed from.
She
little pieces.
drew
There's
from
little
her
pieces
life.
of me. There's little pieces of Paul. There's little pieces of and stuff in
Yeah.
that movie. Because I asked Helen about this, and she's like, "Oh, Chad, you have no idea. There's so much in there." And I actually got when we first moved to New York. Paul and Marla, we and I had an apartment on the east side and Upper East Side, and there was I can't remember her name. There was a woman who lived one door down from us on the same floor. And one of her jobs that she was a script reader. She would read scripts and like proofread them or something. So she had a pile of scripts. One of them
She was
happened to
probably worked for an agency, so she would read through the slush pile. So she's not proofreading them; she's just seeing if this is any good.
Okay,
pass up the ladder to the boss man.
So she had an early draft of Reality Bites.
Oh,
Somehow we found this. So Paul and Marla and I all read the script before the movie came out. And because when we first moved here, the posters for the movie were all over the subway and stuff. It was trippy. So we read the script, and one of the pages in there, I wish we should have saved the script.
Well, you can find it still.
when Janeane Garofalo's character pulls out her black book of names.
Yeah,
and the list of names. One of the names was my friend Sean. It was like there was like Chad, Dwight, whatever, Paul, Sean, entire name.
Oh my God.
And so I talked to Helen on the phone a little. It was a few months after the movie came out. We spoke on the phone from wherever she was living in LA at the time. And I said, Paul and I got a copy of that script. And she went, "Oh no, which draft was it? Oh no." And I told her about the thing, and she burst into hysterics. Like,
that's hilarious.
And she said,
"Now, why would they change a detail like that in the movie?"
But in the movie, she told me this, that I think this is probably common. I mean, this isn't like secret, but when that scene where Janine's character pulls out the black book, that's actually Helen's handwriting in the book.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Because Helen was there for the entire filming.
Yeah, why wouldn't she be? It's her first big break. Ben Stiller, his first directorial film. And so I'm sure having the writer there was, good. Because of your connections, because of my weird connection, because I didn't go to PVA, didn't know Helen. I knew you guys. I never saw Elemental Penguin. I just heard Elemental Penguin stories. But because of the weird connection with Janeane, it's so weird that Janeane would have Houston connections and have lived there for a bit before she goes out to LA. And then the first movie she gets when she's out, actually, it's not the first. She did one called Late for Dinner before Reality Bites. So Janeane, her father lived in Houston. She had done some of her teenage years in Houston, but ended up as an East Coast gal. She went to Providence College in Rhode Island. So I didn't know any of this, didn't know her and she had already become a stand-up comic and won some awards on the East Coast and wanted to move to LA, but needed money. So what she did was she moved back temporarily into her dad's place in Houston. Then went looking for a job, and she got a job at the River Oaks Theater. Robin, of course, was like, "You got to hire her." And they're like, "Is she good?" Like the manager's like, "Is she a good worker?" He goes, "I don't know. She's a comedian. She's funny." So she worked with us. I became her friend. Yeah. And so, I mean, for me, I liked her as Janeane first. And then when I went to go see her do stand-up in Houston, because she wasn't going to let her chops get rusty while she was making money, she worked at the Laugh Stop, did a few sets there. She did at the, what was the other one? Oh, the Comedy Workshop, right? Is that what it's called? She would do.
And she came to see Zeus's Pedals, at least.
She came to see our band a couple of times. Yeah. And I remember Janeane Garofalo, famous Janeane Garofalo, saying, "Man, I wish I were in a band. I'm so jealous of what you do." And I'm like, okay.
And I know that I met her. I just have no memory of it because she wasn't, this is before.
She came to Downtown Ground shows a couple of times. She saw us at Fitzgerald's at least once. Yeah. And I know that was her being a friend of the band. Yeah. I don't know if she liked the music per se, but she just was like, "Dude, everyone wants something else." Like in her mind, she likes being a comedic actress and a brilliant mind, but she would kill to be a musician. Interesting. But she's awesome. But then she goes off to LA. What I found funny was she goes out there, immediately gets Larry Sanders Show and the Ben Stiller Show. She's doing those simultaneously. But when she gets a big breakthrough film role, it ends up moving. She goes back to Houston
again. Yeah.
I got to see her just once when she was filming, and not while she was filming. It was after they had finished for the day. Went to go see her at the Four Seasons, at her room in the Four Seasons. And she's like, pretty fancy, huh? And I'm like, yeah, damn, you've made it, lady.
Yeah.
But we all had these weird little connections to the movie. But here's the big thing. This is the way to wrap it up. Of course, Winona Ryder was in Reality Bites as well. And Winona Ryder, all of them were staying at the Four Seasons. So there I am in Janine's hotel room, catching up, having fun, talking to Janeane, also crushing madly on her because, Janeane. But I'm literally sitting there going, Janeane, what room is Winona in? And she goes, well, she is on this floor. I honestly don't know what room. I'm like, call her. And she goes, I don't know what room. I'm like going, you're telling me that I am just doors away from Winona Ryder and I'm not going to meet her? And I did. That still kills me, man. Though,
yeah,
I mean, not that she'll ever hear it, but Janeane, I really did just want to hang out with you. Had a fun time, but I couldn't get out of my brain. I am doors away from like a high school crush of mine. Damn it.
Yeah.
And still have never met her. But I thought Reality Bites was great.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I have it on
DVD. I do
DVD
know a really
somewhere.
good behind the scenes dirt story, which I can't share over this because it wouldn't be right. But I'll tell you some of the behind the scenes drama. But yeah, look at us meeting famous people. We're fringies.
I'm remembering the fringies. I'm remembering one of the things in that script, that the early draft of Helen's that I read, and that scene with the band
in the side of the page, it's just she graffitied like Chad plus Helen forever, little hearts and stuff, his little doodles.
No, but there was in real life when Elemental Penguin, when we played the one like really big show we had, which was our first show, we played a Mardi Gras dance at PVA.
Yeah,
and as sort of a joke, we actually put out a tip jar in front of the band. Just to see what would happen. And I think there was literally, this is where this joke came from. There was like literally like one dime or one nickel in there. Maybe it was like 15 cents that somebody threw in there as a joke. And Helen thought that was hilarious. So in the script, at there's a scene where the band plays and Ethan's character goes to look at the tip jar and there's 15 cents in it.
Wow!
That's where that came from. But that wasn't in the movie. That didn't make the cut of the film. But yeah. Anyway. Well,
here's where we talk about all of our lives immortalized and never seen.
Yeah,
we are the Biggs. Actually, Biggs does show up at the end, but since you don't know the backstory between him and Luke, he's like going, "Oh, Biggs, you made it!" And we're like, "Who the fuck's that dude? Who the fuck is Porn Stash? Why are we happy he made it?"
You're right.
Porn Stash. No, I think his name is Biggs Darklighter. Nope, it's Biggs Porn Stash.
I keep thinking like because there's going to be at least one more season of Andor.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if they have Biggs show up, towards the end of that? That's it. Well, I guess it doesn't really make sense though, because he could have been there. He could have
been there because he went to the Imperial Academy.
Yeah.
But I think while he's there, he realizes the side he should be on is the rebellion. Biggs is really supposed to be like the role model because Luke is, dude, I can't believe it. You're a pilot for the Empire. He's like, well, actually, to tell you the truth, I'm now with these other people, the rebellion. So there is a story to be told about Biggs, like switching sides. And since Andor is about the birth of the rebellion and it's set 5 years before the events, they could show a Navy recruit Biggs or something. That would be cool.
I'm surprised that's one thing I guess they're kind of sitting on. So.
Is this coming in okay?
Yes.
Good.
Because there was an episode in Rebels where they recruit. You see how Wedge is recruited.
Oh, really?
It's one of the
never
cooler
got that
episodes.
far in Rebels.
It's Wedge and two other pilots who defect to the rebellion,
Wedge.
kind of similar way that Biggs does. But I don't
Wedge
think Biggs
is a
in
badass.
it.
He survives the whole motherfucking thing.
Yeah. So, I know. Anyway, but that would be kind of cool. But
I'm sorry to have upset you. I can see that it's starting to really weigh on you.
I'm resisting the urge to go off into Star Trek. Goddamn.
Wow,
Star Wars
me
direction
too.
right now.
I'm also resisting the urge to go off into Star Trek. It's a future where apparently the nations of the Earth have come together in peace.
Yeah.
But they all have their weird accents. Hello, Captain. I'm pushing button, making nice with the thing. That's my Chekhov.
That's very good.
And I know Chekhov's daughter. Another celebrity thing. Danielle Koenig.
Oh,
Yeah, she's really awesome and a very funny stand-up comic herself. Anyway, let's wrap this up with... and so that was a weird episode, right?
it was very strange.
We just wandered around and we addressed no rumors because I haven't heard any.
No.
I did see, did you see James Gunn's another tweet where he put a classic 1950s Superman thing on there like you sent me?
Yes.
But he said, he goes, absolutely not going to adapt.
That's
And
where I
underneath-
found that. Because people kept replying to it with all these other crazy comics.
Yeah,
covers
all
from
the
the era.
Silver Age stuff,
They're
and
so great.
and the one that he sent was the one about Superman becomes a super hobo. And it's Lois going, "You Superman, you have to fly up there to save Jimmy," and he's got like this battered top hat on. He's like going, "Nope, Lois, I'm hitting the tracks or whatever it is."
Screw you guys.
Screw you guys. I'm now a super
all
hobo.
those crazy. All those crazy comics of Jimmy, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, where Jimmy is just basically like Mr. Bill, like all these horrible things happening to him. He's like, but I don't want to marry a female King Kong.
That's
Tough
where
shit, Jimmy.
that's where the website Super Dickory came along, and I think it's still around, by the way. Highly recommended. But they basically that entire website is using all those covers from the Silver Age to prove that Superman's an asshole, because so many of them in the 50s and 60s were things like, oh my God, that bridge is collapsing, and Superman's staying in front of a stack of hamburgers, and he's shoveling them in his mouth. He's like going, I can't stop to explain, but if I have to eat all these hamburgers.
Yes, right. I think I saw that one. Yeah.
Super Dickory. It's so good. All right. On that note, thank you for curing me, Chad. You have the magic touch. And we'll chat next week about, I don't know, we'll be more organized. Let's have a theme.
Yeah, indeed.
All right.
Stoppy stop.
Stop. Pick you are